Barry, we got another gun gripe today, don't we?
Yes, we do. This is Barry, the palace guard for Tsar Nicholas II, circa 1917. We're introducing another gun gripe today, action types.
All right, let's get to it.
We're explaining different actions today. This is your typical single shot made by Knight. These guns do not have a manual ejector any longer. All it does is lift it out where you can draw the casing out to reload. Simple mechanism, single shot. This is a bolt action model 77 in 44 Magnum made by Ruger. It has rear locking lugs. When you lock this gun up, one lug turns into here, the other lug turns here, and your bolt handle is also a safety lug.
Yeah, with the rear locking lug arrangement, they're generally considered less accurate and not as strong as forward locking lug arrangement.
Correct. This gun has a very positive safety. It locks out everything. When you do this, it holds your striker, blocks your trigger out, and everything. Very efficient safety on this gun. This Mauser bolt action is typical of the Mauser actions. It has forward locking lugs. It also has a safety lug right here. This is a safety lug.
Very safe bolt action.
Yes.
Very strong and very reliable.
Up like this, it's safe, but you can still unload the gun. You push this down, the gun is totally locked. It's out of action and you can't open the bolt.
Probably one of the best firearms ever made.
Very efficient safety. This is a copy of a 92 Winchester in 357 Magnum caliber. The locking lugs on this gun are here. When it unlocks, they come up and that solidly locks the action. This action is not a super strong action, but they make these in 44 Magnum and 454 Casull.
Right, and lever action is generally one of those action types that's one of the most popular ones in America. You can't find a closet in middle America that doesn't have a Marlin 336 and 3030 laying in it somewhere. So lever action is, a real popular action type in America and abroad.
The 870 pump. Bottom load. The locking lug in this gun, it has an extension on the bolt that when you close it, it locks into an extension on the barrel. Very strong. Pump action shotgun, Remington, 870.
Right. And you've got pump action shotguns and pump action rifles.
That is correct.
Although they lock differently, the overall action type is similar.
This is typical of your semi-automatic rifles. M1A, M1 Garand type action on it. The locking lugs on this gun are right here. Forward locking lugs. Very positive, very strong. The M1 Garand was tested during World War II by Julian Hasher, and he said it was the strongest military rifle in existence at that time. This is an M1A.
And a little known fact about the M1A is that Garand actually was involved in the improvements on the M1 Garand to turn it into what would be the M14. A lot of people don't know that, but he was involved in that process.
Now we come to the single action. Very popular in the latter part of the 1800s. This is an old style single action. This gun has a hammer mounted firing pin. This gun is only safe to carry with 5 rounds in it. You lower the hammer on an empty chamber. The way the old timers used to do that, you put it on your notch where you can turn it halfway back. You load 1 round, you skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when you cocked it and lowered it, it was automatically on the empty chamber. They used to call it 5 beans in the wheel. But this gun is only safe to carry with an empty chamber under the hammer, because a lot of people think this is a safety notch. It isn't. If you drop this gun on the ground, it hits the hammer, it breaks the top of the trigger off, and the gun will discharge. A lot of times cowboys had this in their holster, and when they were saddling their horse, they put the pommel over the saddle, and when they would cinch the horse, the pommel would fall off and hit the hammer. A lot of guys got shot down through the leg. So it's better to leave this thing, like the old timer said, with 5 beans in the wheel on an empty. Now the new Ruger single actions have a transfer bar. You can carry that with 6 rounds in it safely. Old style, no. Now moving on up, this is the Smith & Wesson double action revolver, a classic example of a double action revolver. You have single, or you have double action fire by just pulling the trigger. Double action gun, single action gun. Then you have the venerable old 45 1911 single action mechanism. You carry this gun cocked and locked is the way most people carry this gun. Or you can carry it with the hammer all the way down and you thumb it when you're ready to fire. This gun has an inertia firing pin, so when the hammer is all the way down, the firing pin does not protrude. It works like a Newton's cradle. When the hammer hits the firing pin, it's shot forward by inertia. That pops the cap, and then the firing pin is retracted for the next round.
Right. It has an automatic firing pin return spring. I mean, it takes it right back.
That is correct, but it is safe to carry this with a hammer all the way down. This notch here is not intended to be a safety notch. Again, if you drop this gun on the hammer, it can fire.
So it's better to have the hammer all the way down.
Right. John Browning put this design in here where if you were cocking it and your thumb slipped off the hammer, it would stop before it hit the firing pin. Now the newer Colts have a firing pin block in them. You don't have to worry about that, but with an old style gun like a World War II Remington Rand or an Ithaca or so on and so forth, you need to be careful with that. The old style 45 will also fire if you drop it on the muzzle. If you drop an old 45 on the muzzle, the inertia will cause the gun to fire. Luckily, it's pointing down into the ground when it does that. But now with this gun, a lot of people lower hammers different ways. Some people grab it like that. Some people block it and lower it down. But you can fool this gun. You can lower it with one hand. You push down and lower it. When you push down, it depresses the grip safety, and you can lower it.
Very carefully, of course.
Very carefully. That's not a safe way to do it, but it can be done with one hand if you want to. This is a Smith & Wesson 5906 that was used by Atlanta PD for many, many years. They carried this 9mm. It's a double action. Has a hammer drop safety. This gun will not fire unless the magazine is installed. This gun has a magazine disconnector.
So double single.
Double single. The Smith & Wesson 9mm, that's a classic example of a double action 9mm. The Beretta 92 is the same one.
92 is definitely a good example as well.
Or that military M9. Now we get to the Glock. Modern as it gets. The Glock classifies this as a double action gun, but it is actually a single action striker fired. That's the way I would describe it. And with this gun, just like the Smith & Wesson, who copied the Glock, neither one has a manual safety, and this trigger pull on this gun, it starts hard right here. You have to pull it through that long pull. On the Glock, you take the slack out of the trigger. Now you're ready to fire. Now you can get a steady sight picture whatsoever, then you fire. Now when the trigger resets, it only has to go right here. When you feel that little bump, you're ready to fire again. On the Smith & Wesson, the trigger has to go all the way back out to its full stroke. So you can shoot a Glock much quicker than you can this gun. This one you have to pump it. This one you just bump it. But both of them are almost identical. The Smith & Wesson is almost an exact copy of a Glock. You can look at them side by side and they're almost identical.
So much to the point that Smith & Wesson actually has to pay Glock a royalty for every gun they sell.
That is correct. On a Glock, the trigger spring is in the rear. On the Smith, it's in the front. But they are so similar, the slides look almost identical.